What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy and welcome to another FPL video. Today we're in Game Week 2 looking at community Q&A. So I've put out a tweet and a message on YouTube asking for your questions going into Game Week 2. Now I will say there was a hell of a lot of questions. Lots around Mendy, Bernardo Silva and Man City in general, but there was overall quite a few questions. So I've not been able to get through to everything. If I have missed your question, put it in the comment below and either I will try and get back to it or maybe other people in the community will too. And I'll try and do these videos as often as possible and get through as many questions as possible. But obviously, there's only so much time to go into a video and only so much time till the game week starts. So hopefully your question's answered. If it's not, maybe it will be next time. Otherwise, we'll just jump straight into it. So first question comes in from Fantasy Football Forum, but to be honest, loads of people ask me this on Twitter and YouTube, comments and all sorts. Given how far up the pitch Benjamin Mendy was in Game Week 1 against Arsenal, is he a viable captain for Game Week 2? Now, my personal preference for captaincy is never to captain a defender, the main reason being their main points come from clean sheets. Yes, you can get ones like Mendy and Robertson that can get you attacking returns well. Obviously, Alonso and season's gone past, and maybe this year as well. The clean sheets are kind of their bread and butter. And if they do concede a goal, and granted, it's probably unlikely that Man City will concede against Huddersfield, but if they do, that straight away loses them those points. No bonus points for the clean sheet either. So then they're solely relying on attacking returns. And how often is Mendy going to get 2 assists in one match? So for me, his kind of ceiling is looking at about 10, 11, 12 points, I think, on an average game week. I know he just got 15. The likelihood of that continuing isn't that high. Whereas the likes of Salah and Aguero, you're looking at hat-tricks potentially. 15, 16, 17 points for a bunch of attacking returns from them. And I think that's more likely week to week than it is for Mendy. So if you really want to captain him, and it's Huddersfield at home in Game Week 2, I don't think you're going to get a much better chance than that. Obviously, he's played really well in the first game. You'd expect City to go on the attack. Yes, they kind of, I wouldn't say struggled against Huddersfield, but they didn't put many goals past them last season. But I think that was different circumstances, especially the game at the end of the season. City had won the title. Huddersfield were trying to fight for their lives, basically. But I think this time around it might be a little bit more open. City, as we know, are going to go on the attack. So Mendy is going to be up there. His average position, again, will probably be right up the pitch. For me, it's just a little bit, I don't want to say risky, but I just think the ceiling is not there for a captaincy. Yes, of course, Aguero might not score again. Salah may only get another 8 points. The chances of Mendy getting another 15-point haul 2 weeks in a row seems pretty low to me. So for me, I won't be captaining, but I definitely see the appeal. And I just think in Game Week 2, when it's so early on, we're not quite sure if there is going to be a consistent captain yet. Of course, we think Salah will be, but we don't know for sure. It could be a good way to do it. So let me know in the comments below if you think it's a good week to do it or not. No for me, but I can definitely see the appeal. Next up is a question from Harry on YouTube who asks, is Kante a good option this year? And I think if you'd asked this question a week ago before Game Week 1, the answer would have been no. And I'm not sure too much has changed from Game Week 1. Obviously, it does look like he's going to play in a little bit more of an attacking role. He said that himself, that he's going to get forward more. Obviously, got the goal in Game Week 1 against Huddersfield. Was definitely visible from the eye test that he was playing further forward, not having to sit as deep because Jorginho was in the team sitting back. Now, his finish was a bit dodgy, I suppose, for the first goal. If he hits it like that again, chances are it doesn't go in, but it did this time. At 5 million, is he now an option? I'm not so sure he is for our first 11 teams. I don't think I'd want a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2 that had Kante in it. I don't think that a guy that's been used to kind of sitting back as the CDM is suddenly going to get loads of goals and assists because he's allowed to roam a little bit further forward than he was before. So I wouldn't get too carried away, but as a 5 million bench option, he is a potential option there, better than the 4.5 million midfielders as well, potentially. I just think with the likes of Kennedy around, Neves for 5.1 million, they might be slightly better options. Neves, again, player that kind of sits a little bit deeper, more like a deep line playmaker, for example. Played some nice balls into the box for Wolves, obviously got the assist in the first game, and he's on free kicks. He's probably a slightly better option for 0.1 million more than Kante is. Also, got to remember, when you pick Kante, you take up a Chelsea spot, and I'm not saying right now we want 3 Chelsea players, and maybe we won't for the whole season. With the likes of Hazard, Willian only at 7.5 million, defenders priced at 5.5 million like Louise, there is a chance as well, like the goalkeeper too, you might want to get Chelsea players in and potentially have all 3 at some point. So I don't know if I'd be using a spot personally on Kante. Currently I'm going with a 4.5 million bench fodder. Is he suddenly a good option? Not for me for first 11. I'd like to see a little bit more in that kind of role that he's now playing. Once Hazard's back, he's probably going to get the ball a lot more. They're going to try and shift it to him as soon as possible, which might give less of a chance for Kante to get in. But there was an opportunity for him to get played in by Pedro in the Huddersfield game where he would have been through on goal. It would have been great to see what his finishing is like in one-on-one situations. and we could get a better idea of that in the coming weeks. So for me, he is a potential option as a bench fodder at 5 million. I don't want to be using a Chelsea spot probably, and I think there is better options at that price point. Next question comes in on Twitter from Saquib. Apologies if I've got the name wrong there, but it's for people who got off to a good start. What's the best strategy now to stay up in the rankings and not fall too quickly? Is it owning a few highly owned players, not taking hits, etc.? And for me, your strategy at this point should not change. You've had one good week. I started off on 83 points. There's loads of people in the 90s, 100s, or early 100s, and I just think your strategy shouldn't change too much at this point. No one knows what's going to happen in Game Week 2, of course. There's still some players to come back that didn't maybe play in Game Week 1, the likes of Hazard, De Bruyne only got a few minutes, Lukaku and players like that. You know, Eriksen created loads of chances, had a few goal attempts, but didn't get any points. Maybe he will next week, and Mane won't. So right now, I wouldn't get too comfortable. I also wouldn't change the strategy too much. I've done a whole video on tips for the season, kind of top 5 tips for FPL that I would look at considering. So I wouldn't own a player because they're highly owned just for the fact that they're highly owned. If you think they're going to do well, fine. Don't ignore the ownership and not worry about it too much. If you think a player with low ownership is going to do well, get them in. If they're going to do well, that's going to propel you up the rankings and keep you there even more. So I would try and reduce hits as much as possible, but I'm definitely not someone who doesn't take any. If you think they're worthwhile, if you think you're going to have that player in long term, then I would look at doing it. If you're just swapping a player that you've maybe just brought in, or you think you want the player for 1 or 2 weeks, that's not enough for me to justify a hit, because they're going to hardly have any time to recall the points that you spent, basically. So I wouldn't change strategy too much at this point is the short answer here, I think. It's only been one good week. Let's see what happens in Game Week 2. Will our teams continue to do well, or will all the other players that didn't score many points in Game Week 1 do well in Game Week 2? Remember, when you picked your team, you should have been looking at the first 4 or 5 game weeks. So there's a little way to go, still 37 weeks, so don't get too comfortable up there and just wait and see and keep the strategy. You've had that good team. Let's keep it going now. Jamie via YouTube asks, is Salah still essential? Yes. So Dick Duckworth has got in touch, who I know watches the stream, so thanks very much, and asked, how important is it to go with gut feeling even when the statistics say different, and how do you take that into consideration when making your decisions? So I think this depends on you as a manager. So to answer the first question, how important really is it to go with gut feeling anyway? And I think that depends on you. So for example, I won't do that too often. I'll look at all sorts of things, gut feeling, eye test, statistics, what other people are kind of saying. Maybe they've got a different opinion to me, they've come at it at a better angle. So I would look at all those things. If you've got a gut feeling, you're that kind of manager that just wants to go with it, and the statistics are saying different, then sure, you can still go for it. How would I take that in consideration? I'd look at the statistics. What are they saying? How wrong are they? Or how different are they than what I'm thinking? And are they showing me something I hadn't even considered? So for example, if I think X player is definitely going to bring in some assists soon, I look at the statistics and actually they've not really created too many chances, but they've had loads of shots on target, loads of shots in the box, their expected goals is good, then maybe, yes, I've got it wrong, but maybe the statistics is telling me I'm going to get points anyway. So I would look at that, like I say, how different they are, what other people are kind of saying, their opinions, their different angle on it. And really, it depends how you're going to react to a gut feeling pick going wrong, because a lot of players will make a gut feeling pick, and when it doesn't pay off, they make another one really quickly, irrationally, maybe an emotional decision or something like that. And then when that one doesn't pay off, they keep trying to chase that high. So if you're someone who plays with gut feeling all the time, the statistics say otherwise, you don't care about that. I think that's great. That's a really cool way to play. Obviously, when it does come off, it's great. And if you can react well to when it doesn't and just think, well, it was a gut feeling pick, it didn't work out, just move on to the next week, then I think that's the best way to be when you're playing in that kind of idea with the gut feeling. So for me, like I say, I take loads of different things into consideration. I wouldn't just look at one or the other. If you really want to play with your gut feeling, then you've just got to go with it. Ignore the statistics and just that's how you play. So a bit like the Mendy question, quite a few people asked me about Bernardo Silva, FPL Belgium being one. Do you think that Bernardo Silva is going to start in Game Week 2 and further on? And with De Bruyne, David Silva and Salah on the bench in Game Week 1, will they kind of come in as well? So I think people are looking at that for 2 reasons. One, he's a very cheap option getting into the Man City midfield, who've got a great run of fixtures, including Huddersfield at home coming up. And 2, you've got people that have already picked him, had him in Game Week 1 and just worry that he's not going to start. And I think if you're that manager, then there's no need to worry. It's Huddersfield at home. You're not going to get rid of that. Let's see how it goes. Now, if you look at their lineup in Game Week 1, it was Gundogan, Fernandinho and Bernardo Silva as kind of the back 3 almost. And then Aguero, Mahrez and Sterling as the front 3. It's a bit like a 4-3-3 formation, although the way Pep sets out his team, it doesn't really play like that in attack. It's more like a 3 at the back formation with a load of attackers. So I think Bernardo Silva's got a pretty good chance of starting this week. I think the one player that will come in this week is Kevin De Bruyne. He's going to start. He only missed one game last year when he was fully fit, and I think that was right at the end of the season in game week 37 or something like that. So he's almost certain to start. I don't think it'll be Bernardo Silva that comes out, just based on what Pep said about him, how it's him plus 10 players. Either he's in really good form and that's what Pep's thinking about him, or he's at full fitness and he's ahead of the other guys. Either way, Pep is liking him at the moment. I think he's going to start. So De Bruyne will come in for Gundogan for me. And that's kind of the formation and players that will play. Obviously, you've got Sané, and David Silva should be back on the bench this week. But he's had a knock, so we're not too sure how quickly he'll come back in the side. And if he does, it probably would be for Bernardo Silva. I don't think we'll see Kevin De Bruyne get rotated too much. I don't think Sané is a massive concern for Bernardo Silva options. I think he's probably more likely to play in head of Sterling or Mahrez, probably more likely Mahrez. So for me, Bernardo Silva, it all comes down to David Silva, really. I don't think Gundogan's going to be too much of a concern, but there could be some rotation there. But the thing with him is he's 7.5 million. If he does miss the odd game, that's not the end of the world, because when he does play, Man City are going to score goals. We've seen him make that run into the box in game week 1. That can happen again, of course, and then assist potential as well. So for me, if you've got him, absolutely you keep. If you're thinking about bringing him in, I can see why you'd probably be a little bit worried or concerned about it. I think he is a good option. We'll have to see how much David Silva comes back. And remember that Pep did say that he'd have to use him more sparingly this year. So short answer, De Bruyne in for me this week, but I think it'll be in place of Gundogan, and I think Bernardo Silva will keep his place. That's all for this video. Thanks very much for watching. Hopefully your question was answered. If it wasn't, maybe it will be next time. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of all the questions that were answered. Would you have given a different answer? Do you have a different opinion? It'd be great to hear it in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. A like is always appreciated. Helps out the channel. Subscribe if you're new around here and hit the bell so you're notified when the next video goes up and when I'm live streaming. Talking of which, the next live stream will be 9:30 PM on Thursday, this Thursday, to answer all your questions before we get into game week 2. Hopefully you have a great game week if this is the last thing you watch this game week, and I'll be back for game week 3 as well next week. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers all.